Our crumble topping, this is my favorite part. It's like, gets crispy and crunchy on top, and it is so delicious. Like, for some reason, this is deemed acceptable for breakfast. Yeah, exactly. Hi, I'm Macey. I am here with my micro bakery besties. We're on a trip. We're in California. It's kind of like a little coworker trip, right? Like, we're all micro bakers, but we don't get to see each other. We're all from all around the United States. I am from Aurora, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. I've been running my micro bakery for about a year. It's called Little Pearl Breads.
And I'm Kara. I'm based in Charleston, South Carolina, and I run a micro bakery called Saltwater and Sourdough.
And I'm Mykee. I'm from Dallas, Oregon, and own Nourish Bread Co.
So today we are making brunch. So we have a couple of things on the menu, but the first one is going to be sourdough coffee cake. This is a great recipe to use up a little bit of extra starter you might have on hand, and we're gonna jump right into it. Okay, so the first part of this recipe is to prepare the crumble topping. This is gonna bake on top of the cake, and it's gonna get nice and crispy and delicious. So the first thing we did was melted some butter. We'll go ahead and add this into our first bowl, and inside of this bowl, we have brown sugar. So we're gonna get this brown sugar, melted butter mixture going. Once we're done mixing all of this, we'll set it off to the side and prepare the other parts of the recipe. So this is some flour that's gonna go into the brown sugar and butter. And then we'll also add a tablespoon of cinnamon. You wanna mix this up?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we like to mix this with a fork so it gives it a nice crumbly texture.
Yeah, you don't want it to fully incorporate it. You want it to stay a little bit crumbly.
So like everything is moist.
Exactly. Just mix it until it's combined. You don't want it to become like a paste or anything. So this is all mixed up. We're gonna set it off to the side and we'll prepare the next part of our recipe. Okay, so the next step is to prepare the filling. This is gonna go in between the layers of cake for our coffee cake. So in this bowl, we have a bit of flour, and then we're gonna add some brown sugar and some cinnamon. Yum.
This is so good because it'll really incorporate that cinnamon flavor throughout the coffee cake.
Yes. I like to prepare the fillings and the topping right at the beginning when I'm prepping this recipe, just to get it out of the way. This looks great. We're gonna set this to the side, and then we're gonna get started on the batter. All right, it is time to assemble our batter. We have butter in here, 1 stick of butter. This follows a pretty basic formula for any cake that you'd really make. So we're gonna cream the butter and sugar together, add the eggs, some more wet ingredients, and then we'll take care of the dry ingredients. So first we'll start creaming the butter, but we can add in our brown sugar and white sugar. So we have some in here. Throw that one in. And then we can go ahead and turn that on.
So we just mixed the butter, creamed the butter, sugar, and brown sugar together. Softened butter, that's important. And the reason why we did this is we started slow and made it faster because we want it to be creamed really nicely. You don't want to over mix it, but you need to mix it just right so it's the right consistency.
Yes. And now we're gonna add 2 eggs to our butter mixture, and then we'll cream it a little bit more.
I almost forgot about the eggs. Very important. All right, so now we're gonna cream it again.
Yep.
Let's go.
Okay, so we have eggs, butter, sugar, all creamed together. It's light, it's fluffy. We're gonna add the rest of our wet ingredients. So we have buttermilk and sourdough discard. For the starter, you can use discard that is unfed. You can even use fed starter. It doesn't really matter. This cake, it rises with baking powder, so this isn't important to making the cake rise. But what it does do is just adds another depth of flavor. It's really delicious. It adds a little bit of a tang, which complements the sweetness of the cake really well. So this is just a great way to use up extra starter if you have some on hand. So we'll go ahead and add this in along with the vanilla and the buttermilk. I'm gonna lift this up so I can add it in a little bit better.
Yeah, and I feel like the discard adds like another extra moisture and
yes,
keeps,
totally.
So good. You can also do this recipe overnight too, and that sourdough taste will stick with it.
Yes. Along with the discard and buttermilk, we'll add Greek yogurt as well, which is gonna add just another level of richness to the cake. a little bit more of that tang from the Greek yogurt as well. If you don't have Greek yogurt on hand, you can always use sour cream. That's a really good substitute.
All right, we're gonna mix this one more time.
Yep. Okay, so dry ingredients are pretty simple. We have flour, salt, and baking powder, which is what's going to make our cake rise. So we can add these together and then we give it a little whisk just so that everything's like fully incorporated before we add it into the wet ingredients. Okay, so we have all of our wet ingredients here and our dry ingredients here. We're gonna pour the wet into the dry and give it a little whisk. Give it a little scrape.
Get all the goodness.
All right, that's good enough.
Perfect. Here.
Yep. And then when we whisk this, we want to whisk it just until it's combined. You really don't want to over whisk it. So as soon as you realize that the dry ingredients have soaked up the wet, you just want to stop. If you over mix it, sometimes the cake can become overly dense or have kind of like a gummy texture. So you want to be kind of like gentle with your mixing.
That looks really good.
Perfect. All right, so we have our beautiful batter here. And now it's time to assemble our coffee cake. We're gonna clean up here for a second, and then we'll also grab our filling that we made earlier along with the topping, and then we'll put this bad boy together. Okay, it is time to assemble our cake. We've finally reached the last step. So we have a 9-inch round baking pan that we've greased. It's ready to go. And the beauty of this cake is that we have this filling that's gonna go right in the middle of our cake, which is gonna add so much extra flavor. So we're gonna add half of the batter that we prepared into the pan. And it doesn't have to be even like half or anything like that. Just kind of eyeball it. Can probably do a little bit more. Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfect. And then we'll kind of spread it out to make sure that it's even. One thing that I like to do for my personal micro bakery is selling these in like 5x6 pans. And because you can make the batter the day ahead and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, it's a great thing to prepare ahead of time. And then we're gonna put some of our filling on. So I just like to sprinkle it on. One piece of advice with this is to make sure that you don't put it on too thick, because it can leave the bottom portion of the cake a little bit dense if it's too thick on the bottom. So you just really want it to be a thin layer. You might have a little bit of the filling left over, but you want to just err on the side of caution so that you don't weigh the cake down too much. Okay.
I can just smell this.
I know. So it's so good. It's so
Okay,
good.
so now the second half of the batter.
Exactly. Spreading the second layer on can be like a little bit weird because the sugar wants to be picked up with it, but you want to try and maintain that layer as much as you can when you're spreading that top portion of the batter over the filling. So good. Perfect. And then we spread it out.
Pretty even.
Yeah, I would say so. You see, it's like kind of like picking up on the edges because it wants to like bring the sugar up with it. Because you don't want the sugar to like incorporate into the cake, you know?
But what I love is like on the edge, the sugar will like caramelize when it's nice and it gets crunchy, and it's so good.
It is so good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be perfect. If you still have some of the cinnamon sugar kind of peeking out on the edges, that's totally fine.
Because then we're going to cover it.
Yes. So all of our batter's in here, our filling's in there, and then Mykee has our crumble topping. This is my favorite part. It's like it's crispy and crunchy on top, and it is so delicious. So we just take this crumble and we'll put it over the entire top right before baking.
This is the part that I end up just like picking it off the top.
Like eating pieces, yeah. And this is honestly what makes it a coffee cake, like that signature crumble on top. So, so good.
This coffee cake just really reminds me of like my childhood, you know, like waking up Monday morning.
Yeah, and that's like the perfect thing about a dessert like this is that it's dessert, but you could also eat it for breakfast, you know? Like for some reason, this is deemed acceptable.
Coffee, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is perfect. So we are going to stick this in the oven. It'll bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for around like 30 minutes. You want to make sure that it's completely set in the middle, but we'll go ahead and pop this in the oven and see how long it takes. All right, we'll check back in about 30 minutes to reveal the final product. Our cake is ready to take out of the oven. It's been about 30 to 40 minutes. It looks so beautiful and so crispy and delicious. So good. Beauty. So now we're gonna take this out of the tin, get it on a cute little plate, and we're gonna head outside and have brunch with our friends.
This is delicious.
Amazing. It's super fluffy because it's not like overly sweet. It's like the perfect sweetness.
It's not dry.
I think especially for something like a coffee cake, you don't want it to be overly sweet because if you're eating it for like breakfast or something, you know, you don't want it to be too overwhelming.
Right.
Even with like the crumble on top,
It's like perfect crunchy sweetness.
So fun.
That was
Cheers.
All right,
Cheers. 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 Yay.